Now, what is up, my fellow prod coders? Welcome to this video. And now that our HMAC based communication is working, like we basically implemented this thing over here, we are going to have a look at how to implement the same server-to-server communication, but only this time around with RSA based JSON Web Signature tokens. So we're going to have private keys and public keys. And by the way, if you're not sure like what this is and what I'm talking about, like I've created a couple of videos before where I walk you through this document and where I explain like the difference between HMAC and RSA. So I'm just going to assume that you know the difference or that you've watched the previous video. If not, just check it out on my channel. Nice. So what we're going to do now is we are going to work on this setup. So servers having their own private key, but sharing like public keys. And I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to add some additional configurations, right? Because at the moment we only have this token secret, this shared secret thing. And I think we need some additional configurations for the private and the public keys. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first import like the file system. Require file system, and then I'm going to add like a new variable, so partner RSA public key. Now for this tutorial, like I'm just going to read the key from disk. Typically, like you would not do it, you would probably pass it like as a secret or some Kubernetes secret or whatever you might be using, but for this tutorial, just because it's easier, I'm just going to assume that there is an environment variable. And this thing is called partner JWT RSA public key. Okay. So what this is going to do is it's going to attempt to read like a file from disk, and the path of that file is going to be in that environment variable. And of course, if you run this like in production, you would probably also have some proper like error handling around this, but for now, like for this tutorial, I'm just going to let that be, because this thing is not about how to use the file system API, but how to build like JSON Web Token based server-to-server communication. Okay, so now that we have this, I think we're good in that side. The only other thing that we need is we also need the same approach for the private key. And since like we're going to spin up two servers like in the same project, this is going to get a little bit confusing like on the configuration side, but I think we're just going to be fine. Okay, so what I now did is like I added additional configurations. So for one, we can supply a private key. So this is like this yellow thing. And we can also supply a public key, which is the public key of the partner server. Okay, so far so good. What else do we need to do? Okay, we need to have a look at our service. Now, right now we have some default options, more or less like hard-coded in here. I think what we should do, since we want to support both HMAC and RSA, let's just create a new file. And oh no, let's just create a new directory. So I'm just going to call this token. And then I'm going to make this like an index.js file. And the reason I'm doing this is normally if you implement service token, then you would import like this file. And I just made a directory and made an index.js file. So I can put like additional files in here and to just separate the logic a little bit. So I'm just going to mark it all, copy and paste it in here, and then I can just delete this one. Yeah, and that's it. And now we have this in our index.js file. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add something called tokenconfig.js, which is simply going to contain a few functions that are going to return some signing options. Because remember, we need to support both. And in order to do that, let's just go back and I'm just going to copy like this options stuff. Yeah, that looks all right. Okay, so I'm just going to go here, and what I will do is I'm just going to paste it here. And since this stuff like expiration and issuer and audience is more like on a general level, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to call this default sign options, because I think we're going to use these options for both signing the HMAC and for signing RSA based tokens. Okay, so now let me save this so it formats. Okay, and then the next thing we will do is we're just going to say HMAC sign options equals, and then I'm going to say default sign options. So I'm going to take all the fields from here. I'm going to copy them, like make a shallow copy of it. I'm going to put them here. And in addition, I need to specify the algorithm. And by the way, this is the configuration that we are going to use if we're using HMAC. Okay, and now what else do we need to do? We need like some verify options. So I'm just going to say HMAC verify options. And maybe we can just rename this. That's probably easier. Okay. So now we have support for HMAC signing and for HMAC verification. And now we need to do the same for RSA. And if we go back to the documentation, then you see the API is like exactly the same. The only thing we need to provide is we need to just specify like this, that we only want this RSA algorithm, and we need to pass the public key, or like the key, in order to verify and not this shared secret. Okay, so let's go back to our code, and I'm just going to say RSA verify options. And this one, we can basically just copy this and replace this with RS 256. The important thing here to understand is that this here is an array, and this is just like an object, because we can only use one algorithm for signing. That's why this is a normal string, but we could theoretically accept multiple algorithms for verification. Okay, so this is like the verification. Maybe add a comment here and say only allow RSA and SHA-256. Technically, we could put other restrictions in here, like here audience issuer, but for now we just don't need it. And the only thing that's now left is this RSA sign options, which is going to be actually we can just copy this, put this here, and then I'm just going to say RS 256. Nice. So now we have signing options for both HMAC and RSA, and we have verify options for both HMAC and RSA. And now I think what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to make a function, and I'm just going to say get signing config. And now, depending on what environment variables we have available, I'm just going to react differently. So if we go back to the configuration, then we see, okay, if someone supplies like a private key, like an RSA private key, then I'm going to assume that we want to use the RSA based method. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to say, okay, if config.rsa private key, and then I'm going to do it like this, and I'm going to return options an object, and the options should be the RSA sign options, and the secret should be the config.rsa private key. Yeah, I think that's it pretty much. Just one more thing. I think for this, I think here we're also adding this subject inside the options object. So what I will just do is I'll just add like subject here, And then I'm going to use the spread operator again, which is, by the way, super handy. It's like one of the most handy operators in JavaScript. It's just so easy to get something done. And then the same thing, if we are using HMAC, then I will use the HMAC options. And I will also add the subject. And for the secret, I'm going to say config.token secret, right? Oh, and I think we haven't imported the config yet, right? So we still need to do that. So const config is require, I think 2 levels up, and then config. Yeah. Okay, that should be it. So if we sign, then if we have a private key, then we're going to return the options for like RSA. And if not, we're going to return HMAC. And I think we need the exact same thing for verify. So we can just copy like this code. And I will just call it get verify config maybe. So if this is like a private key, then I'm going to return this time around the RSA verify options. But I think in that case, we do not need this subject. So I'm just going to delete this. And now we have to pay attention. So if we want to verify, then we need to use this partner RSA public key as a secret, right? Because we need to take the other server's public key. And the same pretty much over here. So I'm just going to say HMAC verify options. And then inside here, it's going to be the token secret. That looks good. And now I'm just going to export these 2 functions. So get verify config and get signing config. Yeah, so I think this looks pretty good. I think maybe we might need to make some changes afterwards, but I think for now the basic version is fine. And since we're already over 10 minutes, let's just continue in the next video. So thank you very much for watching. And please make sure to give the video a thumbs up. Leave me a comment if you have a question. You can also reach out to me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @productioncoder. And by the way, I've also created an email list. So if you guys want to have a say in what we build next on this channel, you can sign up there, and every once in a while, I'm going to send an email around. So again, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.